Guys, good afternoon. Welcome back again to my channel. My name is Lerato Sebata, your procurement specialist and of course business coach. Guys, I know I have made a video about the difference between public sector and private sector tenders, all things you need to know, and then I also took you through what does it take for you to be part of any vendor database and what I think I have been missing in terms of what I need to do. Plus this came of course from feedback that I received, is that please tell us, what do we do after we are now registered on the database? What's next? What is it that we need to do after that we have registered on the vendor database? So can you guys sit back and let's just talk a little bit about this. What I want to highlight is that when you have now registered on the supplier database, which is the CSD that the government uses, as a central repository, is that you then will start getting RFQs. But what I need you guys to understand is that there is a difference between RFQ, RFP, and RFI. I will then decode and explain this in another video, but for this purpose of this video, let's talk about the request for quotation. This includes both public and private sector. I'll start with the government. You have now registered on the central supplier database. You have your MAA number. Not every request you receive through CSD is valid, so you need to check if it's actually factual or not. What I want to make you aware, guys, is that with the government, National Treasury has done a nice quick reference schedules, listed companies, which is PFMA Schedule 1, 2, 3A, 3B, and C. This includes Schedule A companies. These are institutions, constitutional institutions, which is Independent Commissions Authority, Commission of Gender Equality, the Human Rights Commission. This is the classification. Classification number 2 is Schedule 2, which you guys are mostly probably aware of, and this involves air traffic navigation system, your airports company, your ESCOMs, your SABC, your Transnet, your SABS, Denel. Which ones? Yeah, now those are Schedule 2 companies, meaning they are mandated to generate commission and profit on behalf of government. And then the Schedule 3, which are all the national public entities, that is your brand SA, boxing SA, quite a lot of, there's a long list. If I had to show you guys, I don't know if you can see this list. Okay, it's a bit bad, but it's a whole long list of these documents. I'll probably link this document below for you guys to see all the companies that are advertising on CSD. What I then need to explain is that these companies that are government owned, or it is a public sector institution, while they advertise on CSD, not all of them advertise RFQs on CSD. And not all of them advertise on e-tenders and National Treasury, etc. The reasons are, they all have different mandates, especially Schedule 2 companies, your ESCOM and Denel and Transnet and them. They have a mandate to obviously respond to the needs of the people and of course the country, and therefore you cannot just follow 3 quotations on everything, right? And then the other important thing is that any procurement department or procurement policy, there is what we call a threshold in terms of what governs a request for quotation. RFQs range from 1 rand to maybe 2 million, sometimes to more. This is both public and private companies. Ne? So I want to clarify this very well so that you guys don't miss my point. Now, let's say with Denel or with ESCOM, they could have a threshold of RFQs up to maybe 5 million, for example. SABC might have a threshold up to 2 million. Transnet can have a threshold up to whatever, 1 million rand or even more. And then broadband infrastructure can have a RFQ threshold maybe up to 500,000. Because why? The mandate of these entities are different. The values of the items that they procure, they are different. What you will spend with Denel will definitely not be the same what you spend with Brasa, will not be the same with ESCOM. So while there are thresholds, okay, there's PFMA also talks about the evaluation system, right? 80-20 and 90-10, which you'll probably do in a different video. But now most RFQs are 80-20 because the values are usually below 15 million rand. So therefore, we're going to be dealing with 80-20 evaluation system. Okay, and that means 80% BE, 20% price. That's just what it means in terms of evaluation, right? What you need to know as a bidder or as a vendor. Now, the other important thing is that once now you then receive a request for quote from CSD, you then interpret what the request for quotation entails. Under normal circumstances, is basic 3 things that are required: price, BEE, and technical requirements or functional response. What is that? This means in any RFQ document you receive, usually they want you to respond. What is your delivery timelines? How do you propose to provide response to this service or product that's required? Any project management required, right? That all forms under the functional requirements and the scope. A lot of times this is mentioned also in the evaluation criteria, because public, RFQs, at least they tell you guys how they're going to evaluate you versus a private sector, because there you will look for information they shall not tell you. But me, I'll tell you. And then there is price and there is BEE. Also, the nature of RFQs across the board, its intention, it's not only governed by the threshold, the amount and the price. Initially, the original intention of RFQ is that it is a straightforward request. It is less complex. We're not evaluating solution types of products, something that is out there. We're evaluating you on what we know. So let's just say, for example, a company issues an RFQ. They say we need 20,000 phones, and these 20,000 phones maybe are for police, right? So what then will happen? They will specify we need phones that do what? That have access to internet, that have this type of requirements for the camera, maybe touch screen, those type of technical requirements, né? And must be able to perform on this meg and RAM and whatever processing. They would not define if it's an iPhone or it will be a Samsung or Nokia, whatever the phone is. Then you will then respond and say, okay, based on this request, this is what we can provide, as long as it meets the technical requirements. And in some cases, then they'll also say, no, we actually want Nokias. And you will all go and code for Nokias. Or they want a camera because they need to do this with the marketing team and whatnot. And they want an in-house service. They'll tell you want Canon, EOS, Mark 250 or Canon, ER, what. Sometimes they specify. So if they specify, then it's clear. You're all just going to compete on price and BEE. And when they don't specify, then also quote and compete on price, BEE, and the technical requirements and the specification that was sent out. I hope I make sense and I'm clear. So now, this is what you look into when you are responding to any RFQs. Remember, I'm speaking this with the understanding and the assumption yahori you are then going onto CSD looking for quotations, or on e-tenders and National Treasury, wherever this RFPs and RFQs are advertised. So let's just now fast forward, speak about the Schedule 2 companies. These Schedule 2 companies, which are your Escoms and your Denel, Prasa, Transnet, SABC, and them, when they issue RFQs, they don't always advertise on CSD. They can still advertise with the suppliers that are on their database. Remember, just because you register with CSD does not mean you're not going to be part of a vendor database. Yako Transnet, for example, or Yako Escom. They use that as a measure of pre-qualification criteria that you have met the requirements to do business with government. But you still need to be part of the vendor database for Escom, for SABC, for Broadband Infraco, all these Schedule 2 companies, so they can be able to pay you with their money that, of course, that they have been budgeted and allocated to, and then you are part of their supply database. So that means if you need to participate in the RFQs for those companies, guys, you need to be part of their database. So even if they advertise and extend the RFQ on CSD and e-tenders, okusalayo, when they award you, still have to complete data vendor forms for you to be part of the database. So now let's just say you want to receive RFQs from Telkom. Telkom does not advertise everything on CSD. What you need to do, you either go to their websites. Telkom will either advertise their tenders on their websites, but not all companies advertise tenders on their websites, right? A lot of the two companies advertise on their website. SABC, for example, they advertise on their websites, on even national radio. I know they used to do that. I'm not sure if they do it now, but that's what happens. Their websites, they advertise. Eskom also advertise on their websites, but some of them, trust and believe, they don't. Especially if it's one code or two code that's needed. So what you need to do is then go and the processes to be part of the vendor database. That helps a lot. Let's then move to private sector. You now want to do business with MTN. You now want to do business with Vodacom, with ABSA, the banks and them. Pick and Pay. You can name a lot of private companies. Bidvest, right? So what do you need to do? The only way to be part of the vendor database is for you to go to procurement and ask, how do I become part of the database? That's as simple as that. Plain and simple. Go and ask, how do I become part of your vendor database? If guys, you do not ask how you want to become part of the vendor database, for I don't know how many, they probably have 10,000 suppliers in their database, and ask yourself, who's going to come and find you somewhere? You see? So you need to knock on the doors. That's the way that you can, at least potentially get access to be part of the database. They'll tell you of any pre-qualification requirements that you may need to, make sure that you tick those boxes, and then only you can be part of the database. Then, newsflash, just because you are then part of the database also does not guarantee you to be receiving RFQs. Neither does it guarantee you to have any form of entitlement that, yeah, you guys procurement, you're not inviting us. We can see. Believe me, calm down. Does not work like that. Does not work like that. So once you are then invited for quotations, the same process follows. They look at price, BEE, and technical requirements, which is the functional response, the actual product. And remember, guys, each time you're submitting your RFQ, still mention your delivery timelines, your project management. Give the whole 9-yard. Don't miss anything. The thing about procurement, sometimes it's very complex without even thinking it's complex. Even the professionals themselves, I don't think they understand how complex it is until you work on a project. You realize, actually, this is very complex. So, to be safe, banikezeni bonke, banikeni yonke, dish it all out, a whole 9-yard. So that's what usually happens. And then what I also want to mention is not every award will follow a contract, because some RFQs are just once off. But once it starts becoming a repetitive purchase, the advice is that you must just get a contract to start obviously providing that service and supplying. If you are not given a contract, the purchase order terms and conditions govern you to fulfill that order, and then you can invoice against that purchase order. So injalo le ndaba RFQs, that's just how you can get yourself, into the space of RFQs, and of course responding accordingly. But then the thing about RFQs is that sometimes it happens that you can win this time and lose the next time, because the requirements internally sometimes change, or you have stronger opponents that now are part of the game. The other thing I want to make clear, and also guys, is that if the companies invite suppliers to come and bid for RFQ, then that service, it's not fulfilling, or the feedback, it's not fulfilling to the buying organization, which is the buyers. They're not happy with their responses. They can reissue that RFQ and invite suppliers that are not part of their database. I'll call any written rule that you do this, don't do this. No, those are guidelines. Procurement's first preference is they go to suppliers that are already in the database to look for quotes.
Could you try again?
I man Siri. Hey, yes, I was Siri, but good Siri. So there's no hard rule in procurement in terms of going to the suppliers that are part of the database for quotation, because then you will obviously close, I guess, opportunities for others. So what then happens is, as a preference, procurement then starts with the suppliers that are in the database to look for quotations. If they cannot find what they're looking for, they're not happy with the type of service or feedback, then only they can reissue the RFQ and extend it to the market, which then they'll still go on Google, search, check references and whatnot, and find those suppliers that are not part of the database. So it's obviously value adding for you to be part of the database, because then you may be the first one that they'll go to. But the other thing that you need to understand is the vendors that are in the database, not all of them also will be invited to quote. So I advise you guys to what? To speak to the procurement professionals in those companies or in those departments, to keep on nudging them. Sisters, I'm looking for a quote, I'm waiting, when our next opportunity is coming. Unfortunately, that's the name of the game. In Jalo Lindab. A lot of times procurement, what they do, they rotate similar suppliers, and the reasons are, firstly, there's a point of reference. You know how these ones perform. Maybe they provided service before here. Maybe there was a contract with them. You could measure. You understand. Also, there's familiarity, to be quite honest. And if you had to invite 5,000 suppliers that are providing the same thing, can you imagine who is going to evaluate that RFQ? And some companies also restrict the number of vendors that you invite. It could be that you only send out the RFQ to 5 companies or 7, or not more than 10. And the other thing about RFQ is that it's meant to be quick and simple and straightforward, right? So therefore, there is 10 days or 15 days that is allocated for you to start and complete an RFQ, sometimes 20 days. Tenders, they can go up to 3 months, they can go up to 6 months. It depends on the complexity of the RFP, including the company itself or the department itself. So I hope I have explained the request for quotation properly. So guys, if this video was of value to you, please do leave a comment, like, and of course subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. And next time, guys, we will talk about an RFP, RFQ, what's next, contracting, a lot more. There's just a lot more. See you guys next one. Bye.